All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Melanie Hilmerson. I'm the Study Abroad Coordinator in the Office of International Programs at SAM. And we have Michael with us today, and he's gonna tell us more about the Boren Awards, the scholarships and the fellowships, and what it's all about. And then I will help you later on to submit your applications, find study abroad programs and all of that. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions during the presentation. We don't have a chat because it's a little hard to monitor a chat while you're also doing presentations. So just ask questions as we go along, and I'll turn it over to Michael.
Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Michael. I work for the Institute of International Education. That's what that little IIE behind me is. I don't know why we have 3 dots. I'm sure somebody got paid a lot of money to come up with that design. My basic job today is to give you the basics of what Boren Award is, what we look for, hopefully to whet your appetite to look into it more closely. This is going to be hopefully will be done in about 40 minutes, for maybe 50. Ask questions along the way. That's perfectly okay. In fact, it helps me. I'm a better returner than I am a server. So you start asking me questions, it's going to help us kind of find our way through. There will be more information on our website. We have webinars that are very specific if you decide this is something that you would like to apply for, that will help you along the way, because basically we do our best not to hide anything of what we're looking for. We want people to actually win this award. We want people who apply to have a shot at it. So feel free to see all our secrets, or ask me what it is exactly we want to see, because we're not trying to hide any of that information. Eligibility. If you are interested in this program, this is a government-sponsored program. We're actually funded through the Department of Defense. You must be a U.S. citizen to apply to this program. And if you are not a U.S. citizen today, but you will be one by February, that will be fine. If you are interested, let's say somebody mentioned Korea. If you're interested in going to Korea, but you are also a dual citizen of Korea, you would not be eligible for the Boren, at least not for Korea, because you cannot be a citizen of the country you travel to on your Boren. If you're a dual citizen of Korea, but you were interested in studying somewhere else, like Japan or maybe Mozambique, that's fine. But that is our dual citizenship rule. It is very rarely needed to be enforced. Planning to study a foreign language is a big deal. This is a language fellowship / scholarship. So this program is looking for people to learn a language. For some of you, that will be improving a language. For some of you, this will be introducing a language to you. But this program has to have a language component. And we only go to certain parts of the world. We don't go everywhere like a Gilman or a Fulbright. We have select areas of the world where we go to, and I will mention that. I didn't hear anything bad, or I didn't hear any countries that people wanted to go to so far that were out of bounds, but I'll give the map out. You must maintain your student status at Sam Houston, or if you are planning to start graduate school, medical school, law school, get your MBA in the fall of 2021, you can apply for the fellowship as well. This little red box, basically, and the left side of every slide will be on our website, where you can find more information about whatever it is we're talking about. This program, Boren Awards, used to be called the National Security Education Program, NSEP. It was a little hard to get out, so it was a little too wordy, so we moved it to Boren Awards. But the idea behind this program is we are interested in U.S. national security, and we want you to make an argument about the country you're interested in studying in, about why that country is important to U.S. national security. I emphasize that because some people will write national security arguments for other countries. The idea here, let's say you do want to go to Korea. Why is Korea important to U.S. national security? There are a lot of reasons. We don't need you to list all of them. We only give you 2 pages. You need to focus on one. This slide should be called Stay in Your Lane, because you're going to basically need to talk about what you're familiar with, maybe what you've been studying, what your interests are, something that is germane to what you probably want to do in the federal government post-graduation. You can do this many ways. The traditional ones are military. You see the diplomatic in the middle, maybe a USAID type of job, a food safety and securities job. There are a lot of ways you can look at national security. Those are just 3. So basically focus on what you know. The focus on public service is a big part of this program. So a lot of folks can get through and give us a decent argument for national security on whichever country they want to go to. Where a lot of students have a problem with is coming up with an idea and a detailed explanation of what they want to do in the federal government. Unlike most programs that are out there, read Gilman, Critical Language Scholarship, CLS, this program offers a lot more funding, but it also comes with a 12-month service requirement, meaning that if you are selected as a Boren and you accept the funding, you will have to work for the federal government post-graduation for at least 12 months. That means in the application, you need to let us know where it is you would like to work. We would like to see a long-term interest in federal service as well. So in the application, if you talk about the service as a burden, as a 12-month prison sentence that you just need to get over with, this is not going to bode well. You want to think of, I'm really looking for applicants that are interested in long-term service, meaning they have ideas of where they want to work in the federal government. They have a 5 to 10 year plan, and they can express this in roughly a page and a half in their essay. This is going to be very important. And we have areas of the government that we prioritize, but there are many places in the government where Boren have worked in the past. As long as it has a national security angle to it, it's going to be okay. And you see some of, we can see some of the examples in front of you. Any questions about that? Language is a big part of this program. As I said, you have to be studying a language in the Boren. Now, we have lots of areas for where we will take applicants who have never studied a language before, complete beginners in Mandarin Chinese, and in Arabic and Russian, in Korean, or we'll take the folks that have been studying it for a long time. Our flagship students are folks who are very proficient, maybe heritage speakers who grew up with the language. Everybody has room to grow, no matter how good you are at a language. At least that's what Boren believes. And you need to express your goals for the program. So if you were coming in as an absolute beginner in Mandarin, you're going to talk about how you plan to go from absolute beginner to, let's hope, intermediate. Let's say how long, if you're going to be overseas for 6 to 12 months, maybe your goal is to hit intermediate low. Have something realistic. I don't expect somebody who's never studied Korean before to start a program, go for 6 months and come back, completely at a superior level. That is not realistic. At the same time, somebody with advanced language needs to tell us how they plan to take that last step. And that last step is a very big one. From advanced to superior is a difficult step. So we want to know how you plan to do that as well. So everybody has to have a plan. We have 2 types of programs that we fund on the Boren. One of the programs are called the Flagship Language Initiatives. We call these FLEs. The FLEs are programs where we have in Africa and in Asia and Eastern Europe, so basically we have a program that Boren has helped set up. We have partners like American Councils, University of Wisconsin, maybe University of Florida, although that's up for grabs this year. But the idea is that we have partnered up and created programs that you can apply for. These are turnkey programs, right? You don't have to do a lot of work for these other than apply. These programs are roughly 30% of the Boren we give out every year. And I'll go into detail about those. But the other 70% are self-designed programs, meaning that you go to your study abroad office, you ask them, hey, I'm interested in going to Korea. What options are available for Sam Houston students? They give you that option. Maybe Yonsei has a program that is partnered with Sam Houston, and you can go on that program. For your Boren, you are basically explaining to us the program you have found or created out of whole cloth and asking us to help fund it. This is the only way on a Boren you can apply and successfully for French. French is the only priority language, a preferred language that we have we have a minimum for. So you have to be at least intermediate level of French to qualify for our athlete program if you want to study French. If you want to study any of these other languages, Swahili, Akan, Twi, Wolof, or Zulu, you can be an absolute beginner. But for French, you need at least intermediate level. For the athlete program, we generally get anywhere between 70 and 100 applications for the athlete program. It's a popular program. We give out about 30 awards. French and Swahili are by far our most popular languages on this program. We get the most applications for them. Because we get the most applications for them, and we know every year we're going to have French and Swahili applicants, we have our own program set up in Senegal and Tanzania. The idea there is that because it's so popular, we can afford this. We know people are going to populate them. Now, when it comes to Ghana, South Africa, and if a student wants to study Wolof, we don't have that many applications, and it varies every year. So we don't have our own programs overseas, but that is something you could find through the help of your study abroad office and put that into your application. All 6 languages, 7 if we count a country as 2, all of these languages will meet together at a university, probably University of Florida, for a summer 6-week intensive language program, summer 2021. And then you will go overseas in the fall to one of these countries. This program has been replicated. We have an Indonesian version of this program. It will be through University of Wisconsin-Madison. It is, again, 6 intensive weeks studying Indonesian. Some people call that Bahasa Indonesia. That program had roughly 20 applications last year for 10 spots. So that gives you an idea of the percentage of the success. SAFLI, for folks who are interested in Hindi and Urdu, this is a great program. It's a little more popular. We had about 30 applications for 10 spots. Still a very strong success rate for this program. It is, again, 6 intense weeks of the language in domestically, and then you go overseas to India. Finally, we have our Turkish flagship. Now, if you've been watching the news, Azerbaijan is currently in the news, not for anything good. So right now, we're kind of happy that we're not in Azerbaijan like we should be currently because of COVID. But in theory, everything is back to normal by 2021. You're going to be 6 weeks domestic in Turkish at Wisconsin, and then you're heading over to Baku, Azerbaijan for a semester. All of these languages other than French, you can come in at absolute beginner, but they have the ability, they're very flexible. So if you have Turkish, if you have Indonesian under your belt already, or Hindi or Urdu, they will be able to find a place for you. So even if you have advanced levels of these languages, there is something to learn. Any questions about the fleas? All right. Now, most of you will do a self-designed program. Again, most languages that are popular in the program, the biggest languages on Boren are Russian, it's Arabic, Mandarin Chinese, Russian, Korean, Japanese. These are our big languages. None of those have the flagship language initiatives. These are, you will go out and find your own programs. There's lots out there. They're popular. We're not worried about these languages. Basically, as I said already, you go to your study abroad, they tell you what your options are as an undergrad, you ask Boren to help you fund that. For graduate students, if you are making your own program, most graduate students do not go through the study abroad office. They build their own programs. You don't have to, you can do it the other way, but most graduate students basically go out and build their own program. They find a language school, maybe it's a university or it's a private school. Sometimes they will add things like an internship or some sort of research. Then they combine that into one program. Language is the only thing that has to be in that program, in any program. The budget this year went up. Our budget used to be capped out at 20,000. We bumped it up 5,000 for the undergrads. The graduate program was 24. We bumped it up only 1,000, but now everything is pretty even. The STEM, so that basically means if you are in a STEM field and you're an undergrad, you can apply for a shorter summer only program, that 8 to 11 weeks. But a STEM student can still apply from anything between 8 and 52 weeks. It's up to them. But the idea is that we have a special STEM initiative where a STEM otherwise would not be able to study abroad. We would love to have them for the summer. If you can get up to 25 weeks, you can get the full funding. So if you do 25 weeks on the nose, you're still eligible for the full 25,000. The graduate program does have a domestic budget. If a graduate student applying for the fellowship was interested in studying domestically summer 2021 before they go overseas in the fall, they can get up to $12,000 to help pay for those classes. So let's think you could take some classes locally at Sam Houston or somewhere else in Texas, or you could drive to, fly to Vermont and take the Middlebury program, which is roughly 12,000 for their Arabic program. I think it's more now. It's up to you, but that 12,000 comes out of a total budget of a possible 30. So 30,000 is the most you can get on a Boren fellowship. 25 if you only go overseas is your cap. 30 if you combine it with a domestic. So just the math, just think about that. So if you know you're going to need all 25,000 because you're going to Tokyo, then you're basically leaving yourself with 5,000 that Boren can help you with for the domestic component. When you build your own budget, we're basically asking you to guess at this point. You're looking at a year and a half down the road. Who knows what the tickets will cost from now? Half the airlines could be out of business by the time you're flying in fall 2021. So at this point, you're just guessing. The best thing you can do is guess high. You go to United. Don't go to Travelocity. Don't go to Kayak. Go to United. It has to be an American carrier. Our rules, because we're DoD, are different than a Fulbrighter or a Gilman. We don't have code shares and things like that the State Department can get away with. So basically, you want to go to United, which I believe is the most expensive airline we have. Do a round trip around Christmas time. You'll get an idea of what the most expensive ticket will be for an economy class ticket. So if I go Tokyo around Christmas round trip, I'm going to put that into my estimate in my budget. Everything else you're going to usually be able to get from the study abroad office or from the website of the school that you're applying to or that you will want to apply to should you win the Boren. This is all a guess. It's all an estimate, but basically this gives you an idea of what your total budget will be and how much 25,000 will help you achieve that. Some people are going to find that 25,000 is not as much as they need and that they may need 30, 40,000 to do their overseas program. It's good to know now than later. It's perfectly fine to have a budget that is north of our limit. It's better just to put down what your actual costs are. And understand that we are not going to cover your US passport costs, your vaccinations, dependents, and personal travel entertainment, meaning that if you want to travel around the country, but not for cultural reasons, but just for fun, you're going to the Korean version of Coachella, that is out of your pocket, not ours. We are looking for long-term study abroad. This is a language program after all. So we do set up our budget to entice students to go for that 25 weeks or longer. And most of our students do. Nearly 90% of our graduate students, nearly 70% of our undergrads. And just base that on the national average of only a few years ago, you can see that most students only study for a summer. So we are looking for a special type of student who's interested and willing to do longer term study abroad. Country preferences, as I mentioned, there are some areas of the world we do not go to. Those are the grayed out countries, US, Canada, Greenland there, Western Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. These countries are just not in our region, so we don't go anywhere there. After that, it's a little confusing. So the colored countries, green and blue, are preferred. These are countries that different agencies and the DoD have all gotten around and said, these are the countries we prefer Boren to apply to. These are our favorite countries, I guess, at least the ones we see the most need. The blue countries are countries that no longer are we sending folks, mostly because of safety concerns, some of it political. But for example, Russia, we stopped going to Russia about 6 years ago or 7 years ago, and we haven't gone back. We hope to go back someday, but right now, even though it's a preferred country, we don't anticipate anybody going to Russia. Pretty much outside of Lithuania, everything on that border is open, though. You can go to pretty much any other country. Kazakhstan is our #1 Russian-speaking country right now for students to travel to on a Boren. And there are other examples of this around the world. The white countries are countries that are not preferred, but may be eligible. It depends on where you want to go. So Mongolia, sitting there in between China and Russia. There's no reason in the world Mongolia isn't important to US national security. So somebody can make that argument, and they do every year. This is why Mongolia should be important to U.S. is important to, not should be, is important to national security, why it should be preferred on the Boren, and then you give your argument. The people who read your applications are not employees of Boren. They are professors from around the country. They are people who work at universities around the country. So these folks are going to be on your side. They're going to want to see you achieve. So don't feel bad that you're saying, hey, this should be a preferred country. You're not talking to DoD people. You're talking to academics. Any questions about countries? Languages. Now, here's the one problem. So you look at South America, we have all this nice green, except for Venezuela. Latin America, Cuba, and I believe that's Honduras are off limits. But other than that, most of it's green. But Spanish is not a preferred language on the program. In fact, it is very difficult to win. We didn't have a single undergraduate win for Spanish last year. So I always advise students who are interested in studying Spanish to maybe pivot to Portuguese. Spanish is already the #1 spoken language outside of English in the US government, so it is not considered a needed language or a critical language. We had 4 or 5 graduate students, Boren Fellows, win for Spanish this past cycle. Most of them made the argument that they were learning a specific Spanish that was very important and very hard to learn here in the US, and also very important to what they want to do in the federal government. It's a difficult argument to make, but the graduate students did a good job of that. But in general, I suggest you apply to Portuguese. The committee knows you'll talk about your Spanish background in your application. We have a section where you talk about what languages you've studied in the past. And the committee will be able to know that with that Spanish background, you will pick up Portuguese faster than somebody who didn't have that Spanish background. Also, you don't have to worry about having that prereq. If you apply for Spanish, you have to be advanced. You have to have advanced Spanish to qualify for the Boren Award. So there are a lot of things we put in the way to make Spanish a difficult language to apply for, because we don't want people applying for Spanish. It's not preferred. Haitian, Portuguese, you can apply for indigenous languages within Latin America and South America. Quiche, Quechua, things like that. And those applications tend to be interesting to the committee and they tend to win, but it is difficult. You have to come up with an idea of why is it important to learn this indigenous language and make that a national security issue. This is why it's important to learn Quiche in let's see, where is that? That is in the country just Guatemala, right? Or I'm interested in Quechua in Peru, and coming up with an idea of why that would be, why learning this in this region, this is important to U.S. national security. The argument can be made, it's been made, but it requires a lot of research, and you may need to dip in there. Other than that, all of these languages outside of French, you can have absolute beginner or advanced or anywhere in between. If you're curious what makes a STEM, there's the list. These are our preferred fields, majors. If your major is not there, it's not a big deal. I was an American Studies major, which I would just have to select history in the drop-down menu. You basically pick the closest one. We want you to make that argument why you're interested in a Boren, why you're interested in working for the federal government. If you can make that argument, it doesn't matter if you're a music or an English or an art major. If you're making that argument, the committee is going to be happy. It doesn't really matter what your major is. You may have to say, I know it seems odd for a music major to be interested in working for the State Department, but this is what led me to this. Post Boren, when you get back from your overseas, then you will start getting emails and you're going to start getting job notices to help fulfill your service. You may not actually need to start looking for service until you graduate from Sam Houston, or if you know you're going to graduate school after you graduate, you can postpone or defer looking for federal work until you return from that. But at some point, you will have to work off those 12 months. We don't put you physically into a job, but we will do all we can to get your foot in the door. Some of these are exclusive positions that are only open to Boren alumni. So basically, FEMA is one that hires a lot of Boren right out the gate. So they take advantage of the fact that all Boren who complete their overseas portion will have special hiring authorities that allow them to apply to federal jobs that not everybody can. For example, I've never worked for the federal government. I work with the Boren team. But I'm an employee of IIE, which is a nonprofit. I work with, but not for the federal government. I can't apply to half of the jobs on usajobs.gov because it says you must be a current or former employee of the government to apply to said job. As a Boren alumni, you'll be able to apply to most of those using these special hiring authorities. Doesn't mean you're going to get them, but at least you can get your resume in. Those exclusive jobs, you will be only in competition with other Boren. So if FEMA sends out an email saying they have 5 openings and you put in your application, in general, you're not competing against hundreds of other applications like you would on a usajobs.gov post. That federal employment seminar, that's the picture we're looking at now. We will bring in folks who come back from Boren, recent returnees, on a normal non-COVID year. We will bring you into DC. We will do a 2-day seminar. The first day, we go over all of the things that you need to know when you apply for federal work, creating a resume, understanding the background investigation, things like that. And then on day 2, and this is this picture, we'll have basically a job fair. In this case, we had about 22 different agencies show up to show off their wares. Boren could walk around and see what they're looking for, what they have hired Boren for in the past, things like that. If you are ROTC, or if you are a veteran of the military, we have a special bonus for you when you apply. You get an extra look, get an extra push. This will not help somebody with a bad application, but this can definitely help somebody with a competitive application. So we are Department of Defense program, so we tend to give a bump to those folks. At the very least, they get a second look at. Again, unless your application is just terrible. But the idea being that we know a ROTC cadet who will eventually go into the military for 4 to 6 years is going to have no problem fulfilling their service. But we like to hear from them. We like those folks to get that experience before they ship off. And folks that have already served their country have proven their public service bona fide. So what we want to know is, what do you plan to do post-graduation? It doesn't have to be, of course, go back into the military, but what's your next chapter going to look like? Why are you going to university? Why do you want to study abroad? How is this going to help you get, let's say, working at the USAID or State Department afterwards? In the application, we have 4 priority agencies, these big giant agencies: the DoD, Department of State, Homeland Security, the intelligence community, which is an umbrella of about 17 different organizations. Think FBI, CIA, NSA. These are, if you have no idea where you want to work, if you have a student who's very open, start here. That website on the bottom left, we have a lot of hyperlinks. If you scroll down, where you can see the career pages for a lot of these agencies and a lot of places that have hired Boren. Sometimes you can just look around, see what they're looking for, say, oh, that looks like something I would be interested in, and then do your research, and you can write a more detailed essay number 2 when you talk about where you want to work for the federal government. If you are not a person who wants to work in the intelligence community and does not want to work for the Department of Defense, there are other options out there. Any government job that focuses on national security would count toward your service. We call these tier 2 agencies, but Peace Corps, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture, NASA, all of these agencies can count toward your service. It depends on the job. It would be case by case. But if you know going into the Boren application process that you want to do Peace Corps, you can write about Peace Corps. I would add what your post Peace Corps plan would be. That's a lot of P's. For example, maybe returning from Peace Corps, I would look for work at USAID or maybe Department of State as a Foreign Service officer, using my Peace Corps to help me in that process. You're showing that more long-term interest in government service, and you're adding in a priority agency, which will help you. Any questions about government service? We will have online, if it's not already, on our borenawards.org webinar page, you will see a small webinar about the about the service agreement. So it goes into a lot more detail about what we're looking for. The application requirements, basically we have a couple of essays. You're going to need 2 to 3 letters of recommendation depending on the award. Transcripts can be unofficial, but we will need your, of course, Sam Houston transcripts. And if you went to a university before Sam Houston and those grades are not on your Sam Houston transcript, we're going to need a transcript from there as well. Study plan summary just basically is, okay, you are looking for a program that that you found at Study Abroad Office for Japan. We need a PDF, a couple of PDFs of what that program is all about, just so the committee member can look through it. If you are applying for the Boren Fellowship, you could get a letter of affiliation. You could get a research abstract if you're going to do a research program tied to your language. Those are optional. It depends on whether or not you can get them or if you're doing that kind of research. The essays, these are the most important things of the application. They're short. They're only about 2 pages each. That first essay, again, you're making that stay in your lane, talk about national security based on your definition. Again, Boren will never have a definition of what we think national security should be because it's so broad. But you have to be specific in your application. And you need to avoid that Wikipedia feel to an essay like this, where we ask you, why is China important? And you start talking about the Belt and, you know, what is that? The Belt and Road project that they're doing. I heard that about 1,000 times when we were in the Asia panel. What was lacking was a personal touch to this, where you gave us a lot of information, you gave us a lot of facts about national security, but you didn't tie that into your interest in the country, your interest in federal work. There's got to be a way to personalize that essay a little bit so it doesn't feel as cold as a Wikipedia entry. Essay 2, we ask you to talk a little bit about your extended overseas study, your preparation. Have you lived overseas before? Have you traveled overseas before? If not, have you studied the language that you plan on doing? What are you doing to prepare yourself for this experience? And then more importantly, the 2.5, you know, 2/3 of that essay 2 should be about that job in government we were talking about. What we tend to see are people spending more time on that first bullet point and less time on that second one. And when I say less time, I mean a sentence or two. I would love to work as a Foreign Service officer when I graduate from Sam Houston. Like, that is generally for some people, that's their entire federal career plan. Those will never get strong grade. They will never be successful on the Boren. You have to really get into that. The reason being is that the committee feels this obligation of giving the award to folks who truly are interested in government work, because they know, should you not find government work, should you go into this not really sure what you want to do in the government, you seem kind of wishy-washy, and let's say you did win the Boren and then can't find work because you never really were interested in the first place, that $25,000 is no longer a grant, that is a loan, and you are paying it back. It's very rare. It's less than 3% are forced to pay us back because most people can find work in the government or a contractor that works with the government, but it does happen. And what the committee wants to do is avoid that. So if anybody looks on the fence or they don't really give a strong answer for what they want to do in the government, that is a giant red flag for them. We have a national deadline, but your school probably has a local deadline, or what we call a campus deadline. And the reason being is that the campus deadline allows the Sam Houston folks to talk to you about your application before you hit submit. Basically, it will go through and you can jump in here, but it could be a committee, it could just be the campus rep, but basically somebody will help go through your application, read your essays and say, you know what, this is great. Maybe this could be a little clearer. I'm not sure I understand what you mean by this. Give you an opportunity to make those changes before the 3rd when you hit submit.
We don't have a Sam Houston deadline right now, but anyone's welcome to come to our office and we help them look at their applications and find like others at the university can do that as well. So we're here to help make sure everything's good.
I believe technically it's 5 p.m. Eastern time for our deadline. About 90% of you wait until then to hit submit. Just for my sake, please do it by the 2nd, just to make me happier. But yeah, everybody waits to the last minute on this. So, you know, and it's understandable. You never know what will jump up. So for undergrads, February 3rd. For graduates, though, it's January 27th. We will let you know whether or not you were selected, yes, no, or alternate, by April 15th. And we're going to try to do it a little earlier than that. We're going to try to take advantage of everybody working from home and get some of this done without the travel. We're hoping to maybe even get it a week earlier, but for the last many years, it's been April 15th or so. We've let everybody know whether or not they won the Boren. If you don't win a Boren, you earn a Boren, whether you were selected. Remember that start date for your program can't be earlier than June 1st. So if you're looking to fund your spring program, spring 2021 program, that was last year's application. We're looking from June 1st start date through March 1st start date, anywhere in between. If you want to contact us, we are at boren@iie.org. That's I think there's about 7 of us that read that inbox. You can call us, roll the dice on that one. We have a few people that phone rings to. 3 of us are on the East Coast. 1 person is in Chicago. We don't have anybody on the West Coast, but you guys are fine. But that gives you an idea of what hours you can expect some human to pick up the phone. I think start with the email, unless you know you have 14 questions. If you have a lot of questions and you want to set up a meeting with us, we do offer 15-minute meetings with applicants. You can find that by just emailing us at Boren, and we can set up a little Zoom meeting with you individually. And that's it. We have social media. I think the YouTube is one of the better sites we have because it does have videos of alumni. People have done programs in the past, and you can look for one that went to the country or at least region that you did. Our website has webinars that focus on essays. We have webinars that focus on the service agreement. We have essays that focus on the AFLI or the IFLI, SAFLI, TERFLI, so we have these essays these webinars out there that focus on specific parts of the application, specific parts of the award, so you don't have to sit through everything. This is the longest thing you would have to sit through, is this what I'm doing. You've earned the right to just sit through a 5 or 10 minute webinar at this point. And I'll take any questions. That's it. That's all we got today.
I have one question.
Sure.
You mentioned that you need a transcript in the application. As obviously I haven't graduated, then what sort of transcript are you looking for?
So we're just talking about whatever your Sam Houston transcript is currently. If you are, so you should have some of your semesters already on there, right? So you should see what you took last year. If this is your first year, if you are a freshman applying to the Boren, basically having a letter probably from the bursar or the registrar, I'd say bursar, registrar, that shows that you're a student. But that transcript basically gives the chance for the committee to see what your grades have been so far in uni, and just get an idea of what classes you're taking, and it's part of the overall package. GPA is not going to sink or swim you. I mean, if you have a 1.5, it may be bad, but if you're worried because you don't have a 4.0, that's not the be all and end all. We're looking for a lot more than just GPA, but that's part of it. So that's why we want to see it.
And I'll add about the transcripts that you can get your transcripts like from Sam Houston, and we'll show like in December when you've been here like for a semester and you have your grades, it will show the course that you took during the fall semester and your grades, and then it will also say the courses you have registered for in the spring semester, even though you haven't started those yet. So that will be on those transcripts.
How many spots are available for the Boren Awards for Chinese?
Good question. Mandarin Chinese / China is our #1 country when it comes to the undergrads. At least it was last year, and it is most years. Mandarin Chinese and Arabic kind of go back and forth on most popular language on the Boren, and they're very close to each other in popularity. We do not have a quota, so we don't say, okay, we can only do 80 awards out of our 217 for Mandarin Chinese. We base it more on the percentage of applications. So if we find a year where 13-14% of our applications are for Mandarin Chinese, we tend to go with that percentage of selected. We don't want to see a situation where 10% of our applications were for Japanese, but they won 30% of our awards. And we also don't want the opposite. We don't want a year where maybe Arabic, we had 20% of our applications for Arabic and only 5% were selected. We want it to be closer to the application pool. So that number will change. There's no science to that other than that. So that is basically, you don't have to worry that too many people are applying to Chinese, because that all boats will rise, you know. So if you happen to be in a year where more people are applying for Chinese, that will probably also be a year where more people are selected for Chinese.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure. That said, if you are interested in Asia and you're thinking, well, gosh, I'm applying to Vietnamese and it seems like Chinese is the way to go. No, the committee likes to see that diversity. Diversity, we look at diversity on Boren in many different ways. There's the traditional way, okay, what is your diverse background? But we're not just looking at that. We're looking at your university. How many students did we get from Sam Houston? Not a lot. So that's a diverse point right there. How many students did we get from Texas? A fair amount. How many students do we get that are your particular major? How many students are applying to Vietnam to study Vietnamese, right? So all of this is combined into your diversity, you know, it's not a score, but it is what we think about when we look at diversity on the program. So it's not just your physical attributes, but it's also all of these other things combined.
So if we apply to this, but we'll graduate before, let's say, like the 12 to 24, are we still eligible to apply?
So when do you plan on graduating, or when would you, what is your current graduation date?
Fall 2021.
Fall 2021. So you could still apply if you were looking for, so let's say fall. So are you thinking August or December?
December.
Okay, so you're actually eligible to do until 2021. So that's this coming year. So the earliest you could start is June 1st, 2021. So you could do a Boren all the way to December and then graduate when you get back, depending on what your schedule is like. So if that is possible, going on the Boren, which country were you interested in?
Haven't decided yet.
Not a problem. So let's say you apply for the Indonesian program, right? The IFLI has the best rates. If you haven't decided, I'm putting my hat in for that one, because we had 20 applications and 10 people were selected. So that you think, okay, I have a 50-50 shot at this award at best, at worst. So I'm applying to the IFLI program. I get it. I do the summer in Wisconsin. I do the fall in Indonesia. I come home and I graduate in December. That would be probably perfect for you. Most of our fleas end right around Thanksgiving, first week of December, on a normal year where we go overseas in the fall. This year has been weird.
Okay.
Anyone else? Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, guys. I really hope to see a lot of Sam Houston applications, or at least emails in my inbox to ask me further questions. Thank you very much for hosting me today. I will be available, and all of us will be available at that email address and pretty much until the deadline. So have a good luck on your application, and definitely, think about that, where you want to work in the government. Make that long-term plan obvious to the committee, because that's a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much, Michael.
Sir.